Could it really be true? Two of the biggest global superstars just walked in unannounced, and within seconds, a fashion event turned into a storm of screams, flashing cameras, and near-total shutdown. Witnesses gasped. Security scrambled. Phones were shaking. And still, no one could believe what they were seeing. Why were Jungkook and Jimin, members of the biggest boy band in the world, BTS, suddenly standing center stage at a Calvin Klein event that wasn't even advertised to feature any K-pop idols? Was it planned all along, or a shock drop that even the organizers barely expected? The world found out the hard way that nothing sends the internet into meltdown like BTS. Especially when it involves two of the group's most beloved stars making an unannounced appearance in one of the world's most iconic fashion brands. Calvin Klein, a name that has defined generations of style, had already been riding high on its Gen Z resurgence. But no one, not even their top PR executives, could have predicted the literal tidal wave of chaos, media frenzy, and emotional overload that would erupt the moment Jungkook and Jimin walked through the doors, at exactly 6:47 p.m., in a sleek warehouse in downtown Seoul. Calvin Klein's latest fashion showcase was humming along quietly. Attendees were sipping cocktails, influencers were busy filming content, and the press were lazily scanning the stage setup until the room suddenly went silent. A ripple of confusion spread as security detail moved into position, forming a tight corridor from the backstage area. A flash of black fabric appeared. Then came the unmistakable silhouettes. And in that instant, time seemed to break. Jungkook, in a clean-cut black denim ensemble that had Calvin Klein DNA written all over it, was the first to appear. Just behind him, Jimin followed in an ivory satin bomber jacket embroidered with subtle but unmistakable Korean motifs, a design that, as it would later be confirmed, had not yet been released to the public. The screams erupted like thunder. Phones were whipped out, live streams started flooding TikTok and Instagram, and Jimin and Jungkook at CK was trending worldwide within minutes. But the mystery remained. Why were they there? Neither of them were on the official guest list. Calvin Klein had promoted the event heavily on social media, but there were no teasers hinting at BTS appearances. And yet, here they were. Jungkook, already known as the global brand ambassador for Calvin Klein, hadn't appeared in public for weeks. Jimin, who has kept a lower profile during BTS's group hiatus, was not expected at all. Were they planning something bigger? As the noise escalated, Calvin Klein's event organizers pivoted in real time. Suddenly, the lighting shifted. The music switched. The entire focus of the night redirected to a surprise mini runway walk, led by none other than Jungkook and Jimin. Side by side, they turned the once low-key presentation into an unforgettable visual feast. Cameras flashed nonstop as they posed, moved, and completely owned the room, proving that even without official scheduling, they could outshine the entire Fashion Week circuit. And then came the emotional blow. After a brief moment backstage, the duo returned not for another walk, but for something far more intimate. They spoke. To everyone's surprise, the mic was passed to Jimin first. He smiled softly, clearly moved by the roaring fans and shocked guests. "We didn't plan this for long," he said, pausing as screams filled the room again. "But we wanted to be here, together, to show you something. Not just clothes, but a moment you'd remember." Then, Jungkook took the mic. "We missed you," he said plainly. "And maybe this is the start of something." The room broke. People cried. Some couldn't speak. The combination of nostalgia, beauty, mystery, and sheer fan energy created an atmosphere unlike anything Calvin Klein had seen. By the next morning, Calvin Klein's official website had crashed twice due to overwhelming traffic. Items seen worn by the duo sold out in under 5 minutes. One fashion reporter described it as the closest thing to a spiritual experience I've ever witnessed at a brand showcase. But let's circle back. What was really going on behind the scenes? Multiple anonymous insiders have since hinted that this was a long-game strategy by Calvin Klein's new global creative director, who allegedly had been in secret talks with Big Hit Music for nearly 6 months. According to sources, The plan was to create a viral flashpoint, leveraging BTS's global appeal and Calvin Klein's high fashion transition to redefine what a celebrity brand collaboration could be. Not just a campaign, but a cultural moment. It worked. Within 24 hours, news outlets from Vogue to Billboard had picked up the story. Google searches for Jungkook Calvin Klein spiked 10,000%. Jimin's bomber jacket became a subject of Reddit and Weibo conspiracy theories. Was it part of a secret collection? Was there a hidden QR code sewn into it? One TikToker even claimed the embroidery mirrored a phrase from BTS's lyrics, a nod, perhaps, to a bigger comeback. And the fans? They weren't just watching. They were detecting, decoding, obsessing. Fan accounts posted angle-by-angle breakdowns of Jimin's subtle glances, Jungkook's pacing, and even their hand gestures. Every frame was dissected for meaning. Every breath turned into digital gold. What made this even more groundbreaking was how Calvin Klein responded. Instead of issuing a standard press release, the brand released a cinematic 60-second teaser simply titled, "This is just the beginning." It featured silent black and white slow-motion clips of the duo walking under city lights, cut between abstract visuals of fire, water, and mirrors. No words, just mystery. And that one haunting line at the end, "You'll see us again soon." Speculation exploded. Was this the start of a Calvin Klein x BTS capsule collection? A return to group activities? A multi-brand takeover? Or something even larger? A merging of fashion, music, and cinematic storytelling on a scale never attempted before. One thing is certain. What happened that night wasn't just a surprise appearance. It was a statement. Jungkook and Jimin redefined what influence looks like. In an age where celebrity appearances are often overplanned and underwhelming, they dropped into a room unannounced and altered global fashion conversation without a single prior hint. And while millions now rewatch those shaky clips and blurred live streams, searching for answers in every second, the truth remains suspended in the air like perfume after a superstar has left the building. It didn't end when the lights went down. In fact, the real storm began after Jungkook and Jimin walked off the Calvin Klein stage and out into the Seoul night. In the hours that followed, the internet cracked open. Hashtags surged by the second. Hashtag Jungkook's Calvin Klein, hashtag Jimin surprise appearance, and simply hashtag BTS Calvin began trending in over 60 countries simultaneously. K-media ran emergency coverages. International outlets raced to reframe their stories to accommodate this earth-shaking moment. The ripple wasn't limited to fashion or even to fandom. It hit culture, commerce, tech, music, and digital branding like a coordinated strike. People on the street were still asking, how did Calvin Klein keep this a secret? In an age of leaks, spoilers, and hyper-surveillance, how could two of the most photographed men on Earth walk into a public event completely undetected? No paparazzi, no whispers, not even an airport photo. Some fans speculated they had traveled via private transport. Others wondered whether they had been in Seoul all along, quietly preparing for this. One thread with over 4 million views tracked a single blurry silhouette seen entering a building 3 nights before, believed now to be Jimin. Then came the theories. Some claimed this was actually the first step of a new era for BTS, where individual members begin re-entering the global scene in staggered reveals. Others saw this as a signal that the group's return might align with high-concept brand campaigns. Calvin Klein has always been known for edgy, sometimes disruptive storytelling, but this wasn't just disruption. This was a cultural detonation. And they didn't even have to say a word in advance. Let's rewind. Remember Jungkook's initial announcement as global brand ambassador for Calvin Klein? The photos alone caused app crashes. One image, Jungkook reclining in a black CK brief set against a white backdrop, was reposted over 20 million times within the first 24 hours. That wasn't just virality. That was digital dominance. Now, pairing that impact with the emotional gravity of Jimin's presence added a new layer. It was no longer just branding. It was mythology. Even Calvin Klein's most skeptical shareholders couldn't deny the numbers. In the 48 hours following the event, web traffic tripled. Social engagement rose by 680%. Merchandise tagged in photos of the event sold out globally, not just in Asia, but in London, Berlin, New York, and Sao Paulo. Analysts from LYSD and WWD predicted a sustained multi-quarter influence pattern from this one moment alone. It was like launching 5 full campaigns at once, and yet it was triggered by a 5-minute walk and 2 smiles. Then there's the emotional cost, or should we say investment. Fans didn't just scream. They cried. They shook. They posted confessions like, "I've been having a hard time lately, and seeing them, even just for a few seconds, reminded me of hope." It's this emotional connection that brands try, and usually fail, to engineer. But Jungkook and Jimin didn't have to engineer it. They are it. Their presence radiates familiarity and aspiration in one breath. And in the sea of faceless marketing, that's revolutionary. Behind the curtain, though, the strategy was razor sharp. Insiders later revealed that Calvin Klein's Asia-Pacific team had coordinated with only 4 members of the brand's global leadership. Staff working the event were told only hours before that something huge would happen. Even the stage lighting design included a contingency, subtle blue and purple undertones, in case BTS-affiliated guests arrived. Which they did. You could almost call it a fashion ghost drop.
No hints, no leaks.
Just impact, in retrospect, the clues were all around. Fans pointed out that a Calvin Klein ad released the previous month included audio pulses in the background, pulses which, when filtered, appeared to match the exact BPM, beats per minute, of a BTS intro track from 3 years ago. Coincidence? Maybe. But in this fandom, coincidence doesn't exist, only foreshadowing. Even more revealing was a follow-up post from Jimin himself. Just hours after the event, he shared a single image on his Instagram story. The view from a backstage mirror, half-lit, with the caption, #timing. That was it.
No explanation, no tags.
But the world took it as a message. Timing was everything. They hadn't just shown up randomly. They'd waited, watched, and chosen the precise second to make the biggest impact possible. Jungkook, for his part, said nothing, at least online. But fans noted that his Spotify playlist had quietly updated with one new track, Frank Ocean's Super Rich Kids. A song about luxury, detachment, and unexpected vulnerability. Another hint? Another breadcrumb? You tell me. Industry professionals began calling it the night that changed the calendar. Because after this, Calvin Klein's entire roadmap had to shift. What was supposed to be a regular seasonal event became a global case study in modern virality. Fashion schools are already planning to break it down in trend forecasting lectures. TikTok marketers want to analyze the moment-to-moment reactions. Meanwhile, other brands, from Dior to Balenciaga, are reportedly scrambling to see if any doors remain open with the rest of BTS. But maybe the biggest surprise of the night wasn't the appearance itself. It was what came after. The silence and post-event press conference. No brand statement. No behind-the-scenes interviews. The blackout was total. And that, ironically, made the moment even louder. IT left fans and the industry, with questions echoing in the void. Was this a one-time lightning strike, or is there a full BTS Calvin Klein rollout coming? Was this the start of a Jungkook and Jimin duo project? A prelude to BTS's full group return? Or was it a challenge thrown at the entire celebrity marketing industry, saying, "This is how you move culture now"? Whatever the answer, one thing is brutally clear. Nothing is the same after that night, and yet the mystery deepens. Because just 24 hours later, a hidden update appeared on Calvin Klein's global website, a password-locked page with only one visible line. June 30th, midnight. Remember the moment.
No explanation.
No link. No context. And suddenly, all eyes turn toward the clock. What will happen when the countdown ends? Is this the unveiling of a secret collection co-designed by Jungkook and Jimin? A digital short film? A new music release embedded into fashion? Or is it something no one has imagined yet? A complete redefinition of how fame, fashion, and fandom collide?